I think I have enough toilet paper and canned beans and recipes to make for food that doesn't go bad. And I think I've got everything that we need. I've got some tubs of wipes that'll kill this stupid virus. But when you talk about panic buying, I'm going over on Book Outlet like hysterical. Oh my gosh, I have to buy my books before the stock goes down. Enter, enter, move to cart, move to cart. And I clearly don't need any more books to read. Hi BookTube, it's Kim at K. Becker's Books, and this is going to be my mid-March review. So March is March of the Mammoths and also middle grade March, both of which I've been taking part in. So let's get going, and I'm going to show you the books I've read so far and what I thought of them and what I'm currently reading. The first book I actually finished is not a middle grade book, and it's not a mammoth. It was the book that we picked for my in real life book group with the Critical Chicks, and it is Hazards of Time Travel by Joyce Carol Oates. Joyce Carol Oates, no, this book was not great, and on Goodreads I gave it a 2-star. This was a dud with most of my book group. We rescheduled our meeting, and we're on hiatus indefinitely until we figure out what's going on with social distancing and isolation. But Joyce Carol Oates, no, I'm sorry. This was not, oh, let's see. I was disappointed, but it's weird because as I was reading the book, I was definitely interested in going with it and continuing to read. I wanted to find out what was going to happen, but I was so let down when the story kept taking weird turns, and I don't know what she was doing with the parentheses throughout the book. I saw it as thoughts and feelings that our main character, Adrienne, who ended up being Mary Ellen, I believe the material in the parentheses were her secret thoughts and opinions and things she would have talked about had she been in her original time period in her original home. So, but after a while that got redundant and a little weird. So I wasn't sure why JCO was using that format to write the story. And the book took so many weird turns that didn't go anywhere. At the end of the book, the end of the story at the end, I really liked that story, but there was no build up for that. There was no development as to why the book ended that way. So I was very disappointed in this, and unfortunately this was my first Joyce Carol Oates. That is not going to turn me off to reading more because I know there's some great stuff out there. Not for me and not for my book group. The second book that I read, I am going to say this is a middle grade book. However, it's a poetry book, and it's a very slim book. There are poems in here by several different poets, and one of them is, let's see, there's a poem by Langston Hughes, there's a poem by William Blake, there are other, Marge Piercy, James Reeves, Theodore Ruthke, Brooks Jenkins, Danny Absey, Eve Merriam. There's a lot of poems in here, and this is called A Poison Tree. This is other poems, and it's illustrated by Mercer Mayer. I don't know if any of you who are parents are familiar with Mercer Mayer. He wrote the Little Critter books, most of which I read to both of my daughters, and my favorite is Just Go to Bed. With the little critter dressed up in his pajamas, and he's refusing to go to bed, refusing to fall asleep. And the parents, obviously, at the end of the night, end up yelling and screaming, "Just go to bed!" But Mercer Mayer did the illustrations for this poetry. And this was very good. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, it's tiny. And the illustrations are very pretty. They're all... let me show you a few examples of some of my favorite illustrations. Let's see. This one is a poem for Carol with the little kitten and the milk. And this one is In the Night. I don't know if you can see that. Just that haunting face right in the corner. That one really got to me. This one, I liked this one a lot, the house plants. And the illustrations were so pretty, all in gray and black and white. Spider webs. Can you see that? So pretty. But I really enjoyed, I don't usually read poetry. I do sometimes. Some of it has really stumped me, to be honest with you. But there are some that I really like, and I really enjoyed this book. In honor of middle grade March, I read several middle grade books, and I'm reading one now, and I will probably continue to read a few more. But this one is Be Prepared. It's a graphic novel by Vera Bosgol. Vera Bosgol is a Russian-American writer, and this is a graphic novel. All of the art is in green and black and white. It's a illustration of a moose. This is a book about Vera's experience as a young Russian-American girl who ends up going to camp. It's a Russian camp, so the staffers and the kids that attend speak Russian. They are all Russian American, but Vera, the girl in the book, is 9 or 10, and this is an autobiographical graphic novel of Vera's experiences being a young Russian girl who doesn't quite fit in, who's a little behind in information. She's young, so she's a lot more immature than the other kids who are attending the camp. And it was okay. It was a 3-star for me. First of all, I don't gravitate towards graphic novels. Second of all, the story was geared towards a middle reader, and that was quite obvious. Third, it was, I want to use the word basic, but I don't want to be insulting to the book because it is a good book for younger readers. There are a few kind of gross storylines in here, but readers of that age will probably laugh and think they're funny. So it was a good book. The next one is, I thought it was good and I enjoyed it. And this book showed a perspective of World War II that I had not read about before. And this is When Hitler Stole Pink Rabbit by Judith Kerr. This was written in 1971. And this is the story of a German Jewish family in Berlin right before Hitler is elected in 1933, 1934. So their father is a journalist, and he writes articles and material that the German government does not like, and they try to censor, but they're also planning on coming after him. So the father leaves to go to Switzerland and eventually sends for his family immediately before the election of Hitler. And the children, it's a son and a daughter, a girl and a boy, and they have to pack quickly. And the pink rabbit in the book is the young girl has to choose between her beloved pink rabbit that she went to bed with every night and a brand new stuffed dog to bring with her, and she can't bring both. So she decides to leave the pink rabbit behind and eventually goes to regret that decision. But it talks about the story of the family living in Switzerland and the people they meet. They start to emigrate to other countries. They eventually go to France. They end up in England. And it's a very poignant story of what the family goes through and what they have to do to escape Nazi Germany and Hitler. It was very good, and it was interesting to read about what this family had to go through in this time period. And ironically enough, the things that were not available to them as they were trying to move from one place to another, and simply being in this time period, things were just not as available as they are now. And children could not go to a store to just buy new clothes when they needed it. Everything had to be made for each person, for each child. And it wasn't, nothing was convenient. So it was definitely some insight for me to go back in this period in history to learn more about it, but the book was very good. This next middle grade book I loved, and it made me cry, and it was a 5-star book for me. It's also kind of advertised as a teen/YA story, and the only reason that I thought it was labeled that way was there was one paragraph, one scene that talks about sex and sexual activity in relationships, but it doesn't go very far with that, and it's a very small part of the book. This is called Piecing Me Together by Renee Watson, and this book is a Newbery Honor book with the stamp right here, and it is also a Coretta Scott King book winner. I absolutely love this book. It's the story of a young African-American girl named Jade. She is a junior in high school. She lives in North Portland in Oregon. Yeah. And she receives a scholarship to attend a private school, and she's not sure that's going to work. She is the child of a single mother who lives with her brother, so Jade's uncle. And they live in a very small house that is not exactly in the best shape and is small for all of them. She's very clear that they don't always have enough food to eat. They don't have working furniture, and very much uncertain is her existence day to day. But this talks about her experiences as a young Black woman, living in the city, not being bused, but she has to take the bus for a pretty long way to get to her high school. I was blown away by this book. I was so engaged with Jade's story. It really taught me about some experiences of young Black women and young Black students around their color. Jade talks about her body image and her size. She talks about her experiences with other kids because of her color. She's, I think, one of 2 Black students in her school, and she's an anomaly, so she gets a lot of attention simply because of her color. So she also discusses her hair as a young Black woman, and there's some themes in the book around not being too Black because she's in a school with a majority of white kids. She talks about her hair and her Black hairstyle. That was really eye-opening for me because I never have to think about that in my world and in my existence as a white woman. Never did I ever have to as a young white woman. So that was really eye-opening for me. Jade is an extremely talented artist, and she talks a lot about that storyline and going into Jade's future, what she wants to do. I loved this book. It made me cry because I learned so much about the experiences of this young Black woman, which sounded much more real to me than a novel would suggest. This is a very pragmatic, real, artistic story, and there are parts of it that broke my heart, and I absolutely loved it. And so far in March, the last middle grade book that I read is Sharon Creech's The Wanderer. The Wanderer is actually the name of a boat, and the main character, Sophie, in the story is 13, and she and 3 of her uncles and 2 of her cousins decide they're going to sail from the U.S. I think she lives in Kentucky. They're going to sail to England in this 40-foot sailboat. This book was so good. There was so much discussion about the ocean and her love for the boat and for sailing, and oh wow, and family dynamics. So good, the description of all of it. And Sharon Creech is a master. This book was published in 2000, and I loved it. It did not hit me the same as Piecing Me Together, but it did hit me for so many different reasons. This is a very sea-loving, ocean-loving book, atmospheric, descriptive, and she gets right into the thoughts and the heads of young people, and there is so much to talk about and so much to hang on to in this book. Really, really good. So far, that's it for March. How many books was that? I think that was six or seven books. And what am I currently reading very quickly? March of the Mammoths is still upon me, and I'm past the midpoint of Middlemarch with my buddy reader Alba, and we're discussing this on Voxer. I am in book 5, and we're hoping to continue to read this in a quicker schedule that we have been, and I've absolutely loved talking with Alba about that book. I'm reading Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. I have never read Anne of Green Gables. I think I have to turn in my woman card because this is a book that I don't even know if I even knew it existed when I was a young reader. This book was published in I think it was 1905, 1906. The story of Anne on Prince Edward Island in Canada. So far, I've read 2 or 3 chapters, and I absolutely love it. And this is a weird combination of my currently reading, but I'm also reading Jodi Kantor's and Meghan Twohey's She Said. This is obviously the book of the downfall of Harvey Weinstein and how these 2 journalists came to the story and broke it wide open. And it's talking all about the Weinstein debacle, sexual harassment, sexual politics, sexual abuse, and assault. And I'm about 1/3 of the way through this book. It's fascinating and absolutely can't wait to continue reading it. Not an easy read. There are times I've had to put it down and go and pick up Anne of Green Gables to kind of wash my brain out. It's that type of a book. It's not easy, not an easy subject to read about. So that's what I've read, and that's what I'm currently reading in March. So that's what I've read so far in March, BookTube, and those are the 3 books I'm currently reading. I'll come back now because we're all isolated and I'm not in quarantine, but I'm working from home. We're inside the house. I'm gonna have a few more videos than normal. I'm gonna try not to inundate you all with more videos, but that's my plan, and hopefully you enjoy this. Hopefully you've got some hope and relaxation, and you're doing well. I'll talk to you all soon. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.